your packet today, and the clothespins will make sense. So don't think this is the new BCIU paperclip, but they will make sense once as we move on through the program. But just remember, this is a little pinch for you. So you'll have this and more to come on that. But as you can see, we have several updates coming from our Human Resources Office. Then we'll hear from Business Services, ECSS, IT. We have several updates and an announcement of a new newsletter that you should have all received. And then we'll hear from OPDC, and then Mr. Blessing and myself will have a few updates for the organization overall. So with that said, we have several new supervisors and position changes within the organization that we wanted to just go over and make sure folks were aware of those. And I will turn the microphone over to Mr. George Longridge, our CFO, COO, to do the first set of introductions.
Thank you, Dr. Macker. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. The first person I'd like to introduce, and he's not here today, he's still at his position in the school district of Lancaster, is our new program administrator for safety and security. His name is Bill Gleason. And we're very excited to have Bill on our team. We'll be starting June 3rd. Bill is currently the safety coordinator at the school district of Lancaster. He's been serving in that capacity for just over 10 years. But his experience is very impressive. He's served as a police officer at the city of Lancaster for over 20 years. And as part of that service with the city, he was part of their unit that actually worked for negotiations in hostage and high stress situations. So he has it's a special unit within the police department. Really a very specialized skill set that he has. So we're very fortunate that he's coming to us to head up our new program here at the IU. And he'll be heading up this department and working with our member districts as part of his duties. The next person I'm very pleased to introduce, and I think many of you know her, Mary Tobias. Mary is here with us today. Mary, stand up. Mary was recently promoted in our business services office. She's been an accountant here for several years, has been with the IU for about 20 years in several capacities, has been doing a fantastic job. We felt it was time to promote her and give her some additional responsibilities. She'll be handling all the same programs that she's always had, but now she gets the great responsibility of supervising. We all know how much fun that can be sometimes. So Mary will be supervising in addition to all of her current programs, and she'll be an assistant program administrator. So welcome, Mary, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Longridge. And real quick about Bill Gleason, just so folks know that it is a new position for BCIU, but as Mr. Longridge mentioned, our school districts are subscribing for a consortium. So they're actually paying a subscription, an annual fee, to be part of a safety and security consortium. So the majority of the expenses related to this position for safety and security will be covered by school districts, and including Berks Catholic, the RMCTC, the Career and Technology Center. But in addition, we'll be working with our 42 sites across Berks County and in Harrisburg at the PA Keys. So Bill is currently, as George mentioned, at the school district of Lancaster. He's been there for 10 years in charge of their safety and security and community relations. And in the 10 years that he's been serving in that capacity, there has not been one violent act, one crime that has risen to a level of high profile during his tenure, because he's been about prevention and mental health. And when you think about, that's really the root cause of any issue as it trickles up to a safety and security, violent, horrific situation. So Bill brings not only that law enforcement that we all feel safe and secure having that background, but he's an advocate and champion for mental health prevention, looking at those areas. I think I call him the third chance cop. You know how everybody gives you a second chance? He's the third chance because he says kids just make not the best choices all the time. So we're really excited to have Bill coming and working closely alongside with Eric, Rodney, and we'll be reporting directly to Mr. Longbridge. All right, next I will turn it over to Mrs. Reichert for ECSS updates.
Thank you, Dr. Hackman. I am very pleased and excited to be able to introduce to you today Mr. Nate Bentley, who just joined us in the Office of Early Childhood and Student Services as our Early Intervention Program Administrator. He is on week 5 here with us and has really hit the ground running. He's out and about visiting all of our different sites. He has prioritized some of the behavioral needs that we have in the program to make sure that we're moving some things forward. And he has stepped in to take on a pretty significant amount of staff observations and evaluations within the last week or so. So we are just so excited to have Nate. We did introduce him at the last meeting. He's coming to us from Muhlenberg Elementary Center, where he was serving as an assistant principal prior to his time here. But welcome, Nate. We're so happy to have you on board.
Thank you, Mrs. Reichert. And next from the Office of Professional Development and Curriculum, I'm looking for Mr. Richards. Oh, you're right next to me. Oh, I thought you got up. So, Mr. Richards.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to announce 2 new assistant program administrators will be starting with us in the next couple months, May and June, as they finish up their assignments at their current schools. Candace Hall will be coming to us from Fleetwood. She'll be assisting and working in supporting our Act 89, our non-public schools, as well as a background in ELA and reading as a reading specialist. Also, Daniel Pettinger coming from Muhlenberg. She'll be coming in May. Really trying to bolster our ESL services for our schools. So that's one of her main tasks that she'll come into, as well as a background in STEM, instructional tech, and things of that nature. So we'll welcome them in the next couple months as they start with us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Alsworth to share a couple of updates with you.
You can come right. Come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I have 3 announcements. 2 are on the paper, and neither of them are here. Brandy Fox, who you may have remembered me mentioning when I talked a little bit about early childhood mental health consultation at the PA Key. Because that initiative is moving under the Key, we're gaining about 24 staff under that program. So we promoted Brandy to Director of Cross Systems Infant Early Childhood Mental Health Initiatives. Brandy has been with us about over 6 years now and has been instrumental in bringing that program under the Key. And so she needs a little support. So Jennifer Murphy's been promoted to Infant Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation Project Manager, and she'll be helping Brandy support that work. Neither of them could be here today because they're in the process of about 45 interviews that have to happen in about the next 3 weeks. So they're trying to bring on as many people as they can before July 1st. I do have here today Colin Day. Thank you. Colin's the Director of Communications at the Pennsylvania Key, and prior to that, he worked for the Department of Human Services under their Press and Communications Office. And Octel is thrilled to have him. He's been doing a great job so far. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to say welcome to Colin. Thank you for making the trip down from Harrisburg. You were on the agenda 2 months ago, but again, we're glad that you're here today. So again, welcome to BCIU. So our next item is about inside BCIU, and as you know, this is our opportunity to really look at the great things happening across the organization. Carl and I started this process 3 years ago, and we've hit several locations and programs that provided us with an opportunity. Mr. Blessing and I often say when we drive away, how eye-opening it is just to see the great things happening. You know it's happening, but to see it firsthand, to experience it is powerful. And this way we can continue to champion and advocate for the great things happening across all the 5 offices. But this past month, we featured our HR office because, as we know, we have many vacancies, and that's not unusual for BCIU. That's really just across the Commonwealth, across the country. When I think about the shortage of staff members, it's really a supply and demand applicant pool. When the market's this great, it's hard to find people looking for work. When I think about paraeducators and ECSS, transportation staff members, it really, teachers, it's a continuous cycle. So where it all really begins is in our HR office. And it takes a team to pull all that together. When you think of districts are approving anywhere from 1 to 6 positions every month, we're approving 40 to 50 every month. So the volume of that level of HR, the continuous cycle of people coming and going, never stops. And I really just admire the work that's happening in our HR office under the direction of Mr. Rosenberry and his team. It's a great team. We have great specialists who are dedicated to serving all of us, but looking for people, the recruitment process. So sit back and enjoy recruitment efforts. If I can. How's that looking?
Welcome to Inside BCIU. This is our opportunity to showcase the great work that our employees do on a daily basis. And this edition will feature our human resources recruitment efforts. Sit back and watch and see how we recruit, attract, and retain great employees to be part of our team.
The mission of the BCIU is the foundation for the recruiting team's mantra when they meet with applicants. And we strive to identify applicants that are ethical, have integrity, have growth potential, and a level of dedication to support all of the services that the IU provides to the community.
The recruitment process is detailed, but some of the main points are: the need to be identified from the program. We would advertise positions. The applicants would begin to apply for those positions, and then we would move forward with interviews. Once a candidate is identified, then we would go ahead and get the offer out. So the new hire would then spend their first day in new hire orientation.
We advertise on BCIU's website, PA Educator, PA Read, the local colleges, Indeed. We also advertise at Gold Gym as a new opportunity for us, where we post our positions on their TV monitors. We also attend on-site and off-site job fairs.
Every position is different, but across the board, we look for someone who enjoys working with kids, someone who has a positive attitude and open to learning new things, someone who's team-minded and patient working with kids, not only kids, but with parents, teachers, and coworkers. So today we're at Penn State Burns campus. We're at the job fair here for the career and internship fair, and talking to a lot of students about positions that we would have open, such as teachers, paraeducators. Some of the qualities that I may look for as a recruiter when I talk to some students might be if they are engaged in the conversation, if they're showing interest in the BCIU. It is very helpful when they go onto our website before. I spoke to some students today that said that they were able to view our website before coming today, and then they knew what opportunities we had. So then they were able to talk more specifically on what they exactly looking for. So those are some great conversations that I have with students. And then just some people just ask for some basic information. What does the BCIU do? And so then I can share some of our fact sheet that we have. All right, so I think the importance of participating in job fairs like this, especially at colleges and universities in the area, is just to get our name out. Some of the students that come up, they're fully familiar with what we do. They've already had family members that have gone through some of our programs already. And then others, they don't even know what we do or where we're even located. And so I just think it's important just to get our name out, and then also networking with some of the other vendors that are next to us. I think that's also important as well, so that they can learn also what we do and how we may be able to help them or they may be able to help us.
As you can see, we're no longer waiting for applicants to come to us. We're using a more proactive recruiting strategy that qualified individuals to the BCIU. And we're honored to have such a dedicated team of professionals in the field to carry out this strategy.
So a special thanks to our HR team and Rob, Doreen, Tony, and Alexis, our 4 administrators in that office. Let's give them a round of applause for their work and their leadership, so thank you. Also a special thanks to Dr. Brenda Robertson. She was part of that video and the recruitment efforts. I know you spent a lot of time there as well, so many of you saw Dr. Robertson in the video as well, so thank you. So inside BCIU, as we move forward, our April edition will be featuring multiple programs within the ECSS office. So that'll be coming out this Thursday night. And then in May, our goal is the school bus driver safety competition and to feature our transportation drivers and the hard work and all that they do on a daily basis driving kids. So when you think about that whole transportation, safety is the #1 thing. We're going to feature that at our May Inside BCIU. All right, well, it is my pleasure to turn the podium, microphone, and the presentation over to Mr. Rosenberry and Ms. Cramp, who are going to be giving us HR updates.
Thank you, Becca. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. And with that video, although the HR team was speaking in there, it really has become a team effort in working with programs and working with Mr. Blessing, Mr. Longridge, to be more proactive, because it's with unemployment so low, it's really become more challenging to try and get the people in here. But I also would like to thank Amelia Crotty and Julie Bunnick, because the materials they put together are fantastic in trying to get people's attention, whether that's with printed materials, whether that's with and we've tried a number of different things. We've had advertisements in bowling alleys. We've been in diners on the placemats. We've been, now we're in Gold's Gym. So we're trying different things just to try and get the word out about the vacancies we have. But every time we can count on Amelia and Julie to put together some nice materials to get people's attention. So thanks to them. So we're going to, and I will say Doreen's not able to be with us here this morning, but we're fortunate to have Tony here, so if I do forget something, I can count on Tony to make sure to bring it to your attention. Going through a number of different things, we want to revisit the disciplinary process, and then just a number of annual reminders with open enrollment, the performance evaluations, comp time, the summer hours. Then we'll talk more about the new system rolling out with Frontline Central, and then just a little bit of a strategy for you to try and help with some of the issues that you may face on a regular basis. So the disciplinary process, and it's been about 1.5 years since we talked about it, but we've had some questions regarding this process. And really, before we start talking about the disciplinary process, it's important for everyone to understand that we need to make sure our employees understand the expectations. And also understanding that although we try and be as consistent as possible, every situation is a little bit different. So it depends on the specific circumstances. It depends on the severity of what we're talking about and how we treat that. So what we're going to be providing is a framework for discipline so that you can understand general guidelines. But again, each case is just a little bit different. So with the process, once and when we talk about informal counseling, that's where we want to make sure that employees understand the expectations. What is required of them? What is expected of them? But again, keep in mind, it all depends on the severity of what we're talking about. If it's something that's so egregious, it may not be something where we're going to have this informal conversation with an employee. It could bypass a number of these different steps and jump right to something further down the line. But once we know that the employees understand their expectation, it's also important to differentiate between performance and misconduct. If it's their performance, then that goes down the performance improvement plan path. If it's misconduct, then that gets into progressive discipline. And again, depending on the circumstances and severity, is an investigation warranted? So if it's something where an investigation is warranted, that's where you'll need to collect information, asking all those important questions, issuing a report. And at that point, then we've got to look at policies, look at the handbook, look at all prior their history of any discipline that may have been administered, look at the collective bargaining agreements, if it's a certificated person, if it's non-certificated, if it's certificated, then you have the whole issue with the rights that are guaranteed to them. Are they union? Are they non-union? If it's union, then you've got to make sure it's been our practice to have union representatives involved or invited to the meetings. If it's non-union, then it's not something that's available to them. So once we take a look at all of those different circumstances, as far as the disciplinary process, the informal counseling is really prior to discipline, laying the groundwork, making sure the employee understands those expectations, and that they understand that if this behavior or this misconduct continues, then we're going to move into the disciplinary process. And I know there's been some confusion about different terms and what these different levels are called through progressive discipline. So really moving through the process, the first level of discipline, in the past, it may have been called a verbal warning, but keep in mind that any stage in the disciplinary process must be put in writing. I know there's some question about that, well, it's a verbal warning, we don't have to put that in writing. Now, any stage in this process, we want to put in writing, we want to put it in the personnel file so that everyone is on the same page. Also, we do that, we have the employees sign that they've received that, and I understand it gets confusing, that first level, that formal counseling, we have them sign that so they acknowledge receipt of that. So first level, whether you and also I should also clarify that this is non-transportation. Within our transportation group, we do have a point system. So it's much more formalized where for a level 1, they get a certain number of points for these, and we have a list of infractions. For level 2, it's a higher number of points, level 3, level 4. But it's the same thought process in that there's 4 levels. Same thing here. Formal counseling, first level, where we would put that in writing, acknowledge receipt would go in the file. Now, again, I say it a number of different times. It all depends on the severity of the circumstance. So there could be a situation where we're going to issue more than one first level of discipline. So if it's not something egregious, you may want to issue 2 first level formal counseling letters to the employee. But moving through the process, a level 2 would be what's been called a written warning in the past. We would put that in writing, have them acknowledge receipt of that, it would go in the file. So level 1, level 2, if it continues, it can move into a suspension without pay. The level 3, and there have been circumstances, again, depending on if it involves children, and there's some concerns whether that's with harming the child, or the allegations that we received initially from parents. It could be something where we immediately put the employee on paid administrative leave. We don't refer to it as a suspension because they're put on paid administrative leave pending the outcome of that investigation. And typically, anytime when it involves a child, we're gonna, and when I say that, normally there's a call in the child. And then we have the authorities, whether it's children and youth, or there could be a county detective, they get involved. And there's some discrepancy, but we've relied on those authorities to conduct the investigation, and then we get the results of that. So that's more your level 3. Could be suspension without pay, could be a paid administrative leave. And then the last step would be a recommendation to terminate, where none of us have the authority to fire an individual. We simply make a recommendation to our board of directors, and that's where the administrative and executive team, we make that recommendation, make that case to the board of directors, and then they would vote on that. Now, again, I'll go back to the different circumstances that are involved. If it is a certificated employee, and they've got a teaching certificate through the state of Pennsylvania, they have certain rights that are available to them, and we try and give those same rights to all of our employees. By that I mean we allow employees to speak to the board. So they may come into the board meeting, present their side to the story, and then we would present our case, and the board would then vote on that. Something else you may have heard for those who are supervising certificated employees, it's called a louder mill hearing. That is, again, a legal right of the certificated employees where they have a formal hearing, or it's pre-board, sitting down with administration to hear the charges against them, give them one last chance to express their side, and then there would be a response there from the administration to say what the next action would be. So we really wanted to review this just to give you more information that there has been some confusion centered around do you put this in writing at the first level? Adding to this, the informal counseling, that's for your files. It's just a record that you put in your notes that you've had a conversation with this employee about this concern, this misconduct, again, depending on severity. But I would encourage you to reach out to either myself or Doreen through any of these with your director through all of these different situations that you're faced with, and we're there to work through this together. But that informal counseling, those conversations, they go in your files. Anything after that, that's typically where human resources gets involved. It's put in writing, it's put in the personnel file, and that's where we have a database. We tried to capture, going back at least 10 plus years, all the different disciplinary actions that have been issued. So we look at that to determine, we like to think that we're semi-police, and we say all the priors that have been issued to employees, and we try to be consistent so that we're treating employees that have similar type of offenses issuing the same type of discipline. Any questions?
Is this information going to be shared out with unions so that they understand the process, and that they don't file a grievance if we're talking about an informal counseling? Do you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes they think if you sit with somebody and talk with them, that's something to grieve. But if it's the informal counseling where it's us talking and we're keeping a copy for our file, sometimes it makes them nervous, but they think it's going much farther than it is, but it's really just the first step. So we're just doing the process.
So just make sure everybody's hearing questions surrounding with the unions and maybe a misunderstanding of their involvement in the process and whether we'll share that information. Certainly, we can talk with the union leadership to let them know, because legally, the union has a right to be involved in meetings with employees that could lead to discipline. Our practice has been that we notify the employee that they may want to invite or have a union representative available to them. Now, in informal counseling, at that point, I'm saying that is pre-discipline. That's just sitting down with the employee to say that whatever the issue, the concern was, here are the expectations, and that this is not in the disciplinary process, but if this behavior continues, this misconduct continues, then we'll need to move into the disciplinary process. So that's the information that I can share with the union leadership, just so that they're understanding that those informal conversations, those meetings with employees, that's supervisor and employee, that is not part of the disciplinary process, and that there's no expectation that a union representative or requirement that a union representative be available. Having said that, I do know that there are some employees that get almost paranoid that as soon as they have a conversation with their supervisor, I want my union rep with me. And that's really overstepping the rights of the union. That's still the employer-employee relationship, and having those conversations.
Question. On the formal counseling and the written warning, since they're both written down and documented, and we would involve HR at that process, what's like the biggest difference between those two? Since they're both written and both are HR, is it just a lighter version of the written warning, or how do we word that when we write that out?
And that's a good question. Question being, how do you differentiate what's the difference between a formal counseling and a written warning? If we're putting everything in writing, and great question, because in the past, and if you look at, if you go out there and Google or even look at some of our own documents, the process used to be called progressive discipline, going from a verbal warning, a written warning, to a suspension, to a recommendation for termination. And the thought was that's a verbal warning, that's just a conversation. But then the challenge to that is some people would say, well, how do you make sure to memorialize that conversation? And that's why the best practice has become to put that in. So, yeah, that's the difference would be in the language in the letter, to say that this is more or less saying first level of concern that we're bringing to their attention, first level of discipline. And we have a number of templates that are out there on the supervisors tab. Fortunately or unfortunately, we've had a number of opportunities to issue these different letters going through the process. So there's various templates out there for a number of different situations. And I guess that's where to look for us to help you the process. If you want to take a first stab at drafting something, send it over to us in HR. We can review that just to make sure, again, things are being consistent in how we're presenting it to the employees. But it's really the language in the letter that differentiates between the first level and the second.
Makes sense.
So for the formal counseling, we're expecting to have the employees sign off on any. The informal counseling, is it also a good idea to maybe follow up with an email that we've had this conversation and have the employee acknowledge it? Otherwise, how do we show that we've had that informal counseling except for my handwritten notes, perhaps?
And I guess by having them acknowledge that, that's really formalizing that a little more than what we would want to. The informal counseling, those conversations, and I understand that's why for the first level we went to putting it in writing, even though that in the past had been called verbal. But those informal, I think that's more a conversation, a verbal conversation, sit down face to face, saying, just making sure they understand the expectations of your expectations of them in the performance of the job and how they're doing it. Whether you put that in an email to them and to say, I'd like to summarize our conversation, here's the things we talked about, maybe whether it's attaching some type of reference for them, meaning could be their job description, say the expectations, and so that they have that, but it's not necessarily looking for them to acknowledge receipt of that. But I understand your concern that how do you, if somebody would challenge that and say, well, we never had a conversation. I've never heard you say that. And I certainly understand that. That's where potentially you could send an email just saying, I'd like to summarize our conversation.
So with that being said, are we discontinuing the counseling efforts? or does that come at the formal counseling level? I'm sorry, I just.
Another good question, because I think we, with the number of forms that we have, we've contributed to the confusion. So the question is around, and it's out there, it may be called a verbal counseling record or a counseling record. It's out there, if you look on forums. And that is still out there and being used. What we've tried to do is move away from using that form and issue everything in a letter format. And that's where with the template, the letter templates that are out there on the supervisors tab, we can try and move toward that. We still get the counseling record, and we use that as a level 1 first level, because it does, that form does ask for employees to sign that. But we've really tried to move away from using that form. And it's something that we want to try and get away from using that. Yeah.
Would someone from HR be able to make sure the supervisor knows which forms we're supposed to use? I feel like sometimes I'm using an old version of something that's out there, so I'm not really sure if I'm using the right one. Or even just a list of the.
Well, what I'd like to do is I think if we can just take that verbal counseling record, we'll just take it down. My preference is we don't use that form at all.
But we can do that. Yeah, we can do what Tina said Beth could send out.
Just even a list, even if we have a list of the names or numbers, whatever that the forms are, just for making sure we're using the one that you want us to do. When we do many of these levels.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure I understand what form. Is it other than the investigation process?
Templates.
The templates, there's really no numbers. Right. We can send out the instructions on how to get to them. Because it's, we can label what they are. And again, I'll fully acknowledge sometimes Unify, I'll be the first one to admit it's got a massive amount of information out there, but it's trying to find that information out there that's a challenge. So what we can do is send out how to drill down to where those templates are. And that'll give you an idea. And again, we're not looking to put you out there on an island and say, here's a template, add at it, you're on your own. No, we're just saying, let's draft a letter and then involve us in reviewing that so that we can finalize that letter. But yeah, we can, what we'll do is we'll take down that verbal counseling record to avoid that confusion of that form and let you know where the templates are, because we have the different levels of the templates. Typically, the first level and second level. So the formal counseling level 1 would come out from under your signature. The written warning would come from under your signature. When we get to a suspension and beyond with the recommendation for termination, that would come out from Office of Human Resources. That would have our signatures on that. Any other questions?
So as a follow-up, and these are all great questions, we will send out this flow chart with the direction. I think this is a great visual from HR for all of us as we go from, as Matt said, the slim fast version of disciplinary process. This is like the keto diet, and then you go up to here. So, all joking aside, though, it is a great question. What is the difference? And it comes down to one thing. It's communication and our words, language. And everything that Mr. Rosenberry has shared, it comes back to how do we act? How do we engage? How do we interact with our staff members who are reporting and working with us? And the one thing we continue to say, and I feel so fortunate, we tell the board, having 80 supportive supervisors is critical at all times, because we want to treat everyone how we want to be treated. So any situation you're facing, and when you hear disciplinary process, it sort of sounds negative, it sounds harsh, people get nervous, anxious, all of these words have been talked about, but how we are making people feel is critical. We know when there are things that are so egregious and deals with child abuse, and that's a whole different demeanor and disposition.
But when you drill down now and have a root cause of performance versus misconduct, it's really about how are we engaging? Are we offering support? That's the number one thing HR will say. What have we done? One, to outline our expectations, but have we also offered support for them to be successful? And that's a big thing. We put people in a lot of positions that are just changing at all times. So making sure that as 80 supervisors around this room, collectively, we're offering that support and assistance to our staff members. And it takes extra time, it takes extra effort, but I commend you for your commitment in continuing to do that, because I go back to how would we each want to be treated when we're in those situations. And the other piece of advice we'll give you is, don't you be nervous, because at the end of the day, I mean, this is dealing with someone else's behavior. So that calm, controlled, educated on the process is critical for all of us. You know, when we go into any situation that's unsettling, or just you're not quite sure the reaction you're going to get, or when you get that person say, I want my union rep here, we can't be flustered over that. We just have to be that calm, controlled, say, great, let's figure out how we're going to do next steps. When will the meeting be? So they don't take you off of that supervisory role. So again, I think this is very helpful for all of us. So thank you. And we'll send out how you drill down, because the HR office on the supervisors tab has a wealth of information, but where do you find that, I think is a critical piece. And then the only other thing I noted here when Rob was speaking was the whole idea of administrative paid leave versus suspension without pay. So when you use the word suspension, staff members get all anxious. But even when you say somebody's on administrative leave, if it were you, think about how it would make you feel. And we typically explain, again, it's all situational based on individual circumstances, but we try to explain to the staff member, it's to protect them as much as the organization, because it might be allegations made against an individual. So it's to protect the individual as much as the organization. So, and it's a standard practice that our solicitor has required us to do in regards to if there's any type of allegation that would warrant an administrative investigation. So there would be an administrative leave that's based on pay. So I think that's a key piece for us as we navigate ahead, that our communication, our language is so critical. And I commend you, thank you. We always tout how great our supervisors are. When it comes to our 18 board members and we're in a termination hearing, it's Rob sitting there answering questions from the board, and we have 18 outside people asking questions. Did you ask the person this? Did you interview this person? Did you talk to the parents? I mean, they're asking us questions. So when we're asking you to do interviews, get signed statements, it's only because basically we're then being interviewed by the board who's going to make a decision if this person's going to continue employment or not here. So with that said, we say thank you. I'll turn back over to Ron.
The other thing to add is, Dr. Atkins is exactly right. We're here to work with you, not against you. And I know, they understand there sometimes it feels like HR is working against us whenever someone's behavior or misconduct has occurred. But we're here to help navigate through that process. And that's the exact point. Because ultimately, when we're going before the board, we're put on the stand almost to answer those questions and why we did it this way, and defend the recommendation that we're making. So, right. Any other questions before we move on? Open enrollment. So this is the time of the year we'll be rolling that out. That starts Monday, April 29th, goes to Friday, May 17th. And this is the time of the year for changes to the medical, dental, vision plans, your flexible spending account, your waiver, and we'll be sending out information, Blackboard Connect, BCI Unify, BCIU All, a number of different means to try and get this word out, because this is the one time a year when you can make those changes to your coverage levels. As far as the rates, and you'll see we have different groups labeled here. This is for leadership, middle management, tech and support. Dental, medical and prescription right now, and For those who are new, we have one plan, and it's all through the health trust, and that's where we've got a number of districts in the county and some other organizations involved in that trust. They set the premiums. So right now, it's still at not to exceed 8.5%. That's the rate, the premium that will be going out in our communication. They make a final determination mid-late May as to what those rates will be. So that not to exceed 8.5% is an 8.5% increase over last year, and then each group has their contribution level. So even if somebody's contribution level stays at 10% from last year to this year, because the premium is going up by 8.5% potentially, your contribution is going to go up with the premium level. So right now that's established for medical and dental. Those rates are all the same for all these different groups. Vision has been established at 0% increase. All of those rates that you'll see in these different groups are all the same. The only one where you'll see different numbers is in this dental column, and that's because some of the different groups have different benefit levels. So you'll see for leadership, middle management, tech, and support, BCIUA has a different premium level because they have different coverage levels. ASME has different coverage levels in that dental column, SEIU, and Head Start. So all the numbers in the medical prescription and the vision, those numbers are all the same. In each of the groups, dental is a little bit different. Dental and vision, those numbers are established for 1920. Medical prescription, waiting here from the trust, mid to late May, and then a final notice will be sent out as to what those premium rates are. So the packets will be going out in the mail, getting those out tomorrow. In that packet, you'll have a form that will show what coverage level you have, single, two-party, family, what dependents you have covered, and if you want to make any changes. So if you have single coverage, it'll just show you, that'll give you space if you want to add spouse, children, your spouse, your children, not just but if you have family coverage, it'll show you, your spouse, and children. They're on there, and if your spouse has their open enrollment and things have changed where that's a better plan, this would be a time when you could either you come off or your dependents come off at this time. Your packet will also include the flexible spending account full enrollment form, and that's an annual process. Even if you've been in it for the past 5 years, every year you have to re-enroll. Every year you have to set that new amount to enroll in for the 1920 year. It will also include information on the waiver. So if you have waived in the past, you need to submit that form again in order to continue to receive that waiver. And then there's, as part of that process, you have to demonstrate proof of alternate coverage in order to receive that waiver. And then we'll talk a little bit about Frontline Central, but that's open enrollment this year is a little bit different, where you'll be able to submit information either on paper or in Frontline. We'll give you more details here in a minute on the Frontline system. But bottom line is, if you don't want to change anything and you're not in flex spending and you don't waive, you don't have to do anything. If you want to make a change to medical, dental, vision, you've got to take action. If you want to enroll in flex spending, you've got to take action. If you waive, you've got to take action. Any questions? Yes.
When does coverage change start?
July 1st. Yeah, our plan here is July 1st to June 30. We go through this open enrollment process to give time for us to collect all the information and get to the various carriers, Capital Blue Cross, Davis Vision, Delta Dental, wage work for the flex spending. So if you didn't hear, I'm sorry. Question was, when does this change take effect? Any other questions? Also, the time of year for the performance evaluations, and that Doreen sent out emails to the the various directors to have the list of employees that are to be evaluated, and looking for that information to come back, I believe, by June 14th. And the only other thing to keep in mind is if you're finding that there's individuals that will not be meeting expectations for many of the groups, so if it's anything less than satisfactory, then that will trigger a performance improvement plan. So we're looking to have that, if you could let Doreen know by May 1st, if you have any employees that are not meeting expectations or needs improvement. So they need improvement or unsatisfactory. Any questions on that? Next topic, comp time. So that notices will be distributed next week. This is, for those who are new, we do allow a number of our different employee groups to bank comp time. It's hours that they've worked, but rather than be paid, they can have compensatory time that they could take at a later time. So the notice is prepared for any comp time earned from July 1st of 2018 through April 14th of 2019. The same rules apply to all employees eligible to use the comp time, and anything comp time that have been earned and used through April 14th may continue to be used through Friday, May 31st. And it's at that point that any balance that is owed as of May 31st will be paid out on Friday, July 19th. Now, occasionally there are some exceptions, and that should run through your director and ultimately into the Human Resources Office if anyone's looking to anything outside of the norms here. Employees may not earn comp time from June 1st through June 30th. And I guess the last reminder is the maximum amount of comp time that people have available to them is 40 hours. Any questions on that? Next is the 4-day work week, summer hours, starting on Monday, June 24th, going through Friday, August 9th. Historically, that has been the first week after the board meeting in June, and it goes to the week prior to the board meeting in August. The only exception to those summer hours is the week of July 4th. So that will be the regular hours that employees normally work because of the holiday in the middle of the week there. This year, the holiday is Thursday, July 4th. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday are regular work hours. And anybody who uses paid leave during the week of July 4th will be charged 1.0 for that leave day because they are working those regular hours. Now, this is a list of the programs who in the past have been able to take advantage. Not every program is able to take advantage of the 4-day work week, but really that's working with your leadership team, your assistant director and director to determine if that's something you're able to take advantage of, because there could be some unique circumstances that will require alternative schedules, and in the past we've tried to work with employees when able. These are the options that are, and this hasn't changed. This is the way it's been for the past several years. For those working 7 hours a day, that's a regular schedule. They'll be required to work 8.75 hours per day. There's a number of different options for the employees to work those 8.75, whether you want a 30-minute lunch or a 60-minute lunch. For those who have an 8-hour per day schedule, they're now work 4 10-hour days, and different schedules available to them. And then the break periods are the same length as during the school year. And then this, we recently had a question, and this happened to be from an individual who has been here a few years, but just to reinforce how paid leave days are charged during summer hours. So for a sick or a vacation day, the thought process is, and we'll use the 8-hour employees. So they work 5 8-hour days during the traditional school years for a 40-hour work week. So during the summer, they're taking those 8 hours that are normally worked on a Friday and working an extra 2 hours on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it's 25% or 0.25 of the Friday hours that are now being worked on each Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So the thought process is that if somebody uses a paid leave day, they are now charged the 1 plus the 0.25 from the Friday. So for an individual who takes off a whole week, they're charged 5 days. For somebody who only takes off 1 day, they're charged 1.25 for the use of a sick or vacation day. As with anything else, there's always an exception, and that would be for personal days. And because there's a very limited amount of personal days that employees are given, you're only charged 1.0 personal day for the use during the summer hours. So to give you an idea, and it'll get even more confusing whenever a person wants to take a half day. So, and it's easier explained again with the 8-hour per day employees who are now working 10 hours per day during the summer. If somebody wants to take a half day, think of that half day in the terms of their regular schedule. So for that 8-hour person during the school year, a half day is 4 hours. So they'll be charged a half day and they'll be taking 4 hours of paid leave and they will be working 6 hours. So on a 10-hour day, they work 6, take 4, get charged a half day because our system, traditionally, we charge either 0.5 or 1.0. We either take a half day or a whole day. If there have been questions around that, that is something we're looking at, whether to consider changing and allowing less time than a half. That's something we are looking at. The other question that we received is, because you're charged up here 1.25, can at any time I use that 0.25? Unfortunately, the only time you can use the 0.25 in the system, because our practice is you either use 0.5 or 1.0. The only time you use that is if that is all you have left. So that would come into play because we are given our paid leave every July 1st. If someone would exhaust, and we'll use an employee who's, let's say they're given 10 vacation days on July 1st, they use their 10 vacation days, or let's say they use between the summer and the school year, they use 9.75 vacation days and they've got 0.25 left prior to June 30th. They would be able to use that 0.25 prior to June 30th. The reason I say that is because if they carry that 0.25 into the next year, meaning July 1st, they would then have 10.25. So you can't use the 0.25 when you've got a balance of 10.25. But now that I've probably confused everybody.
No, it makes sense.
Any questions on that?
Related to this. We have a very simple question. I'm hoping it is. How do I see how many vacation days my employees have? I never know what that is. Or is there a way in the system that I can look at that? If they come to me and ask me and I have I'm just approving stuff, I don't know what they have. So is there a way to make that happen?
The employee can see it on the form.
Right, the employee can see, but the supervisor cannot. You don't have access.
That's a good question.
However, you can ask Deb in HR for a full accounting of your staff, and she can produce a report for you.
So if I would go to her like every quarter, let's say,
Sure.
she can print it out. Okay, that works.
So the question was for Teresa sitting in the issue.
And the people online? Yeah.
Question being, how does a supervisor see how many days their employees, how many paid leave days their employees have? So certainly the employee can look on the employee portal, but in order for a supervisor to know, they could ask Deb Angel in our office to issue them print out a report for them so that they could see how many days each of their employees have available for them at that point in time. The only thing I would say, if you get that report, keep in mind if there's any recently used that haven't been entered. That's the only thing where there can be some discrepancy.
Any thoughts in the future about allowing us some kind of online access to be able to that?
Yes. Question again being any consideration for online access, and that I didn't even ask her to say that, but that's a nice segue into with the frontline system that we're implementing. We've already implemented the recruit and hire. That's the applicant management system, which many of you are reviewing applications in that system. We're now in next topic is Frontline Central. That's another module within the Frontline system. But as soon as we have this rolled out, we're moving into the absence management system, which is an online system that will show a lead available. So yes, we're moving towards giving access to supervisors to be able what paid leave their employees have. Any other questions related to the summer? With that, I'll turn it over to Tony to talk about Frontline Zone.
Thank you. I apologize for the sweaters. I'll be chilly in Pennsylvania, so we're not used to it. So as Rob mentioned, Frontline Central is another solution among the suite of solutions that we use through frontline education. And this June will mark 2 years with Recruit and Hire. And so we're moving into Frontline Central, and we will launch on Monday, April 29th, which is exactly the time that open enrollment begins. And we did that purposely because a year ago I stood here and Matt, you asked the question when we had open enrollment, can we do that online? And we had to sadly say no. But this year we can say yes. So we're really excited about that. A year later, we really have come a long way to enable you to use the form system that we've been building. So Frontline Central actually has 3 components, one of which that has been our primary focus is the onboarding of new employees through Recruit and Hire. So essentially what we've done is created all of these forms electronically on the system so that when we have someone that we're offering a position to and they accept that offer, we can go into Recruit and Hire, mark them as hired, and send them all of their paperwork electronically in a packet so that that person can start completing their materials, they can read materials, they can acknowledge policies and handbooks electronically. So that the goal is that when they come to us on the first day of orientation, we're not spending time with paper. We're really talking about the important stuff, about the IU, about what what the mission is, our vision, our values. And so that they have more time to really ask questions and have that relationship building and those connections on that day. So we're super excited about that. With the onboarding process as well, all of the materials that that person uploaded through Recruit and Hire, their application, their transcript, all will be converted to Frontline Central. Because Frontline Central is an electronic personnel system as well. So what will be nice is that all of those materials will be accessible to what you'll see as a supervisor as well as we move forward with permissions. So we're building those forms now. We're at a point now, we are actually finished the onboarding packets. We just need to test it out a little bit. The contracts is another component for our temporary and professional staff. They do receive contracts. So we can build those contracts through the system and again, send them to the person and they can sign off and that will be in their electronic personnel file. And the third component is an employee record management system, that electronic personnel file. So what we have down the road, we have to have a plan in terms of how we're going to achieve this, but we can essentially scan all of our personnel files and upload it into Frontline Central in that person's record. So that as a supervisor, you may have access to certain information as well, readily than having to make a trip to HR or there's certain permissions we'll set. It is a database system in that it will have certain fields. It will have the employee's demographic information, potentially their seniority information, their emergency contact information, their assignments. So we're still building some of the data and we do have some decision points to make. However, it is a record management system, so we're super excited about the fact that we can actually go online and have access to records. It's also a form use. In addition to the new hire getting to fill out forms through the new hire process,
Our employees' everyday use of forms will all become electronic as well. You have a name change, you have an address change, you submit it online through the personal change notice. The Form W-4, you finish up your taxes, you may have discovered that maybe you need to withhold a little bit more so you don't get hit with a big bill at the end of the year. I don't know if that happens to you. Just saying. So you have your W-4, direct deposit, salary adjustments, especially for EA folks, when they do their salary movements, favorite topic for Carl, when they jump over to the next column, they can now submit that all online. And what's nice about the system as well is that when a person submits a form, it stays in their record. So they can go into their own file, their form, and they can see what they submitted. So they don't, sometimes they don't know, they call HR, they might be asking you questions. They have all this information will be available for them as well, or on tuition reimbursement. And huge is acknowledgements, policies, handbooks. So this can all be uploaded as a form, and the employee can acknowledge with an electronic signature that they received that policy or procedure. So a lot of nice features to the Frontline Central program. And as I mentioned, we're launching April 29th. So I'm sure then you worry about, well, what can people really see and the permissions. Behind the scenes, there are system settings that we've created where we have groups, permission, profiles, and scope of control. So everyone in this room, you will have permissions to see those employees who report directly to you. For those who oversee programs, you will have the opportunity to see all the employees within your program. So Marnie, all of PAK, you will see. Tina, childcare, pre-K counts, you will see that. So we've set up permissions. I do need to work on the program levels. I can get that taken care of in the next couple days. The scope of control, we can limit permissions to locations, employees, departments. We don't use the department term really at the IU. They're really programs, but that's a central language. So, and then job types. And then we have groups. So as a supervisor, you will be assigned to 2 permission groups, one as an employee and one as a supervisor. Everyone defaults to an employee, and when we show you the system, we're going to show you it both ways. As a supervisor, what can I see? And then as an employee, what can I see? Because I want you to be comfortable that an employee cannot at all ever get access to another employee's record. Okay, that will be important. I think important when you promote this to employees for them to feel comfortable that no one can see their information other than the supervisor. So I'm sure that we did an announcement through Unify on the 17th of April. We'll do another one on the 29th. We attached a video and that will play today, but that will help folks become familiar with the system, because on Monday when we launch, we're going to grant access to all employees. And so then they'll receive an email notification that they do have to register into the Frontline system with a password, a username and password. Everywhere on the slides, you'll see, please use Chrome as your internet browser. It will not work if you use Internet Explorer. It may work, but you may not see everything that you expect to see. So Chrome is really the browser that one must be in when accessing Frontline Central. That's really very critical. And before I go into that, because I'm going to switch laptops too. I'll just mention, we're launching again Monday, April 29th. Employees will have access. For everyone in this room, you have access to Recruit and Hire. You really have access to Frontline Central. When we flip the switch this afternoon and grant you that access, when you go into Frontline, and I'll show you that, you just toggle down. When you see Recruit and Hire, you toggle down and Frontline Central will be there already. You don't have to do any special registration. You already will have access. So that's a nice part of this. But for employees who have not used the system, they will have to register. And we will have materials available in your packet as well today. Is a quick start for Frontline that is available and will be available online for employees. That really guides folks through the process, what to expect. They can look at the video, but they can have this piece of paper, go online, and actually know what they need to look out for. We will continue to build forms, and then we have some, as I mentioned, we need to make some decisions regarding some of the data. IT's been working on a separate system for HR, so we need to just decide which system we're using for what pieces of data. Permissions will be finalized, and then really the expansion to your offices. So if you're a program that every year you send your employees a list of policies and protocols that they need to acknowledge, we can help your program build those forms. And then you can send the forms out, and then in one fell swoop. So just send the forms out and people start acknowledging. The system lets you track the forms. So you send a form, you can track the progress of that form, and then you can make sure that it's completed. You can send reminders to folks regarding the forms. So it's pretty robust system. I will tell you that going through this building process, I will not say that we haven't had glitches, but frontline support has been so supportive in terms of being responsive when we've had issues. They do respond within 24 hours, so we have been able to resolve some things. Some things we've discovered for them that they now need to correct in their system. But I just would assure you that we will work through the issues. It is a work in progress, so just bear with us. But anytime you have a concern when you're working with Frontline Central, you can give me a call and we can work through it online. So with that being said, if did anyone take a look at that video? Oh, okay, Brenda. So it might be redundant. So good news is we can showcase this video right now.
Frontline Central makes it easy for you to complete forms as well as manage all of your employee information. In the next few minutes, we'll learn how to create a Frontline account, manage preferences, complete forms, and view your employee record. If you don't already have one, the first thing we'll need to do is create a Frontline ID. You should receive an email from your district admin inviting you to access Frontline Central. Open the email and select Create a Frontline ID. You will then be prompted to enter your name, a username, password, and email address. Click Create Frontline ID once you're finished. To log into Frontline Central, open a web browser, such as Google Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. In the address bar, type app.frontlineeducation.com. Enter your username and password you just created, then click Sign In. The first thing you'll see is the dashboard. Here you can find information about tasks you may need to complete and pending materials. The top portion will show you forms in your inbox, urgent forms, and any new notifications you may have. To manage your preferences, click on your name in the upper right corner. From the drop-down, you can sign out of the system or change your account settings. The account settings section allows you to update your basic information in your profile, change your username and password, add your address, or see what Frontline applications you have access to. Now that your account is set up, we can begin completing any necessary forms your district might have for you. From your dashboard, the forms that need to be completed will show up in your inbox. You can access these by clicking View Forms or by choosing My Forms in the side navigation. Locate the form you'd like to complete and click the Complete Form button. While there are some forms that will require you to input additional information, others will be as simple as reading the policy, typing your name at the bottom, and clicking Add Digital Signature. You can click Save Progress at any time and access the form later. Once optional comments are in place, click the Submit Form button to complete your form. Also in the My Forms section, you can see which forms you've sent and completed. Urgent forms, those with an upcoming due date, will be highlighted in yellow, and overdue forms in red. You can also expand a packet of forms to see the forms included, as well as your progress on completing these forms. The last thing we'll look at is how to view your employee record. To do this, click My Profile in the side navigation, or you can type your name in the search bar above. Your employee record will show you all your basic information from personal and contact info to employment information and credentials, as well as emergency info. Finally, if you have any other questions about how to use Frontline Central, you'll find a number of great help and training resources by clicking the question mark, then choosing Frontline Support. This will take you to the Learning Center, where you can browse videos and articles and search to get the answers you need. That's it. Now you know the basics of using Frontline Central. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so just a couple notes with the account settings. That is, so the instructions say the person will go into their account settings. And then we spoke about that email is for purposes of password recovery only. Forms will be sent to the person's work email, so their BCIU email address, that's where the forms will be going. But what's nice about it, and I would promote and encourage our folks to use the account settings to change that email, because right now, that email is their work account. To say they forget, they don't go into the system that often. You know, they might move every couple of years or 5 years, 10 years down the road, and now all of a sudden they're being asked to use Frontline Central to do their electronic submission of their personal change form. They may forget their password. So if they use their personal email, they can go into Frontline and then ask for their password to be recovered, and an email will go to their personal email. So I think that's a nice feature and something we really want to promote them to use their personal email in the account settings. We also mentioned when you drop down into account settings that you can look at your applications. And then that application, it will speak to merging solutions. So we want to also remind folks to really ignore that message. Do not merge those solutions. They're not quite sure why that's sitting there as a message on the account settings. So we just want to make sure that folks aren't merging their solutions. So again, in the account settings, 2 things. Change your email to your personal email, so if you forget your password, you can recover it through your personal email. And the second thing is just please ignore the message about merging the solutions right now. They're looking into why that is sitting there. So just ignore that. So what I'll do is I want to flip the computers because I want to show you, if you'd like to see it, really what that looks like from the supervisor's perspective, and then how you can initiate forms. The forms have been built as either forms that we send or forms that can be initiated by the employee. So the employee will not see multiple forms and all the policies and acknowledgments that we have out there right now, but they can see a W-4. They can see flexible spending for 1920. So you can submit that. The waiver form is out there. Your enrollment forms will be out there by Monday. So you can submit that electronically. So there's only a handful of forms that employees can initiate on their own. And there are workflows. So workflows that require someone else to take action and approve the change will flow through that person. You can have email notifications sent to a person to let them know that a form was completed as well. So any questions so far? I mean, super excited.
Eventually, would the evaluation forms be available to them on this system?
It's very possible. Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about it, and we've had conversations about the performance evaluation form itself. And, is there probably maybe opportunities to even revise what that looks like? So we were hesitant to do that, but we certainly could. Just imagine anything that you really would send to an employee and want to have them complete, sign off. Frontline Central is the solution that we're moving toward.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to switch off
That's good.
computers and don't be afraid, because if you see me challenge the world in doing that, I can build a form very easily, but I don't know if I can switch off the computer. So.
Chuck, you help her. Chuck's going to help you, so that's good.
Don't be alarmed.
As soon as we're done with the HR section, we'll take a quick break. So we just have a few more items we want to go over here with you. So as soon as we're done with the HR section, we'll take a quick break.
So it's just a matter of you So if you were my desktop as well, since I'm bringing.
Oh.
Pretend you don't see that part.
Find the secret files up there.
I was gonna say, that's that's the intel right there,
Yeah.
right?
So the first thing I'm going to do is go into Chrome.
And if we can all come back together. Tony, can you get to the front line from Unify? Isn't there? So just so you know, that's a.
Right, so on Monday, what will happen is you will on Unify, Amelia and Julie will put the link right on Unify on the right-hand side. So that way you don't have to go into a browser, type in that app, frontlineeducation.com. You will be able to just click right there, and Amelia will also provide instructions right on the page as well. So, and we can upload probably the quick guide too. That's for folks. So here's Frontline Central, and I'm going to log in as my alter ego, Test Tony. Shuffle information. But right now I am in the, I have to check something out. But right now as test attorney, I believe that I've assigned myself to the supervisor group. So you can see that I have an employee directory that I can see. And if I click on employee directory, these are all the folks that report to me as a supervisor, so I can see them. And basically, you just see very basic information in terms of the person's name and their phone number. But if I wanted to check on, say, Kelly Lynn, and I wanted to go into Kelly Lynn's profile, what you can see here is I can go into their personal information. I can see just very basic information, their address and their name. Can everyone hear me? So, because I'm really not very coordinated. So if I scroll down, I can see emails and I can see phones. Now, keep in mind, some of the data is missing. It's just we did not import that data, but it's not an issue for us to get some of that information in there. But we were just trying to build it to launch it. The employment section is basically their employment, their hire date. Again, seniority date, I think would be pretty important for some programs to have access to this information at their fingertips. So we could import that data, their supervisor, and then their status. In terms of just very basic, their position, their job type, location, and department. There is opportunities for us to add further detail, but we weren't really ready for that yet. So as we build the data, we'll start to open it up more for all of you. Credentials is not in up and running just yet. So, but this will be a nice place where you can find their credentials and do they have their CDA? What's their certificate in? So lots of things that we could put in here that you will have access to. The personnel documents, this is really their electronic personnel file that you will have access to I don't know why it's saying that. I gave myself permission to find out what happened there. But notice here that in this example, I had submitted as an employee my tax shelter annuity plan notice acknowledging that I can have a 403B. And so it's automatically what we can do is when we have a form that is acknowledged, we can tell the system, place it in one of these folders. And then it becomes part of the electronic file. So there's evidence that I completed the form and signed off on something. So again, all of this will be folders that you will have access to. Shouldn't probably get too excited about the discipline folder, but as you know, when you have disciplines, you may not have the full history of that person's disciplinary record. So we will start to build this where all the disciplinary actions for a person will be in their folder that you will see. So that when you get ready for perhaps, unfortunately, maybe the next step, you can see what was submitted or signed off on an issue. You will have that at your fingertips as well. So that's also a nice feature to this system. I think you'll find that as a supervisors, you just will have more access to information that you really need so that it's a little easier on you and you're not trying to find some information or having to call somebody else for information. This will be here for you. And then the emergency contact, we have it again built this, but we can easily put in emergency contact. Because again, you may not have access. Like you may have your own system, I'm sure you do, but this will allow you to go into Frontline Central, go to your employee's record, and then see their information if you need to reach somebody in an emergency. So that's how you will find your information. Now, I will point out for you that this is not a database system that you can export. It's flat data. So unfortunately, there's no opportunity for you to be able to export data into an Excel spreadsheet or download their materials, what have you. So just kind of keep that in mind. Nicole, you had a question?
You kind of answered my question, and part two to that question was under the reports. Are you able to see, like you had the one team for policy acknowledgements? You can see each individual one, but can you see the group of employees that you supervise to see who may or may not have acknowledged the policy?
Well, the way to track that, it would be called tracking the forms, and we'll have to talk about permissions where tracking is concerned, because if you have access to certain information, you may be able to see other forms that aren't necessarily something that you would need to see, okay? Because then you will start to see maybe more personal information that we have blocked out in terms of birth dates and gender and what have you that we don't think is relevant to our everyday operations. However, with that being said, if ECSS identifies a person to be their forms person, that person will be able to check on the forms. Now we can, and there's a lot of conversations still that we need to have. If that's something that you say, you know what, this will really be helpful, how can we make that work? Is there a way that you can track only those forms that you send? I'm not quite sure. It seems to be all or nothing right now when I look at the system, but you could have your forms person in the program keep an eye on who's completed the forms. Because yes, it doesn't do that. I'm sorry, there were other questions.
If you use My Learning Plan, that has not gone to this. Is that going to be separate, or is?
Thank you for asking that question. So the question is My Learning Plan. My Learning Plan is under Frontline, is a Frontline education product. However, because we are unique and we pride ourselves in being unique, right, at the IU, our system, because it allows outsiders to use the system, Frontline has not been able to have Frontline, the My Learning Plan, also be part of the other solutions. So if you have My Learning Plan, and I'm sure all of you do, you will need to operate under My Learning Plan separately from Frontline Central. Okay, great question, because I know that will be very confusing, I know, for folks. But it is
Frontline world, it's professional growth, and the Frontline suite of products are for our employees. As Tony said, because in our world we use My Learning Plan professional growth to let people come into our classes or our trainings that we're offering. We can't tie it into the other stuff.
I just know when Frontline first comes up, everybody's going to be, well, what about it?
Right, absolutely. So we'll need to clarify that so that folks aren't confused that they are separate and apart. You can't come in and let. Now, word on the street is that they are trying to resolve that for us, and perhaps by the end of the summer, but we'll see what that looks like. So I think last year we did try to
we thought we were going to roll it out, but then we discovered that they could not do that. So that's the data part of it. The reports, Nicole spoke to reports. Again, it's not a database system that you can export to. It's not a report writing system that you can, use like you do with CSIU. So they have been building reports, and as they build reports, they do put them in this section. And again, it's all based on permission right now. And then any forms. So any forms that I've completed that I can do. And you see here, even as I can go in here. So I have my current forms that may have been sent to me that I have to work on. Any forms I've sent, the completed forms, and forms that I can start. That's where you're going to go if you decide that you are doing your flexible spending with the electronic frontline central system. You will go to forms I can start, and or even with the waiver form. So if you click on forms I can start, the forms that are available for me to complete are sitting here. And you can do it by category if you need it, if you want to look at for alphabetical to make it easier to find something. I'm not quite sure the rhyme or reason of why these are in the order that they are, but you can rearrange them. But say I wanted to do my flexible spending form. So I can find my flexible spending for 1920, and you click on Start This Form. I hope I activated
It's coming.
Okay, great. So here's the form, and now I'm just going to, you see how some of it's populated for me already? So some of the information is populated. And so I'm just going to go down to the bottom and I say, I hereby elect the following. So I'm going to just elect my flexible spending. And just so that you have it in front of you, remember with the flexible spending, there's a minimum and a maximum contribution you can make. For the flexible spending for healthcare, it's $130 a year, so essentially $5 a pay. The maximum is $2,700 for the year for 2019. And you can, mentioning with the flexible spending, keep in mind we do have that carryover provision of up to 500. So technically you could have the 500 carryover. You're still allowed to do your 2,700, just in case you have some items that perhaps you're planning to use and you want to take full advantage of the tax savings. So we threw that right out there so it's easy to save. And then I'm going to just put in my election. Dependent care, the dependent care, again, minimum is 130, maximum annual election is $5,000, but we wanted to say per household because there is a limitation. If your spouse is doing flexible spending for dependent care as well, combined can only be $5,000 in the year. So it's something that's really important to know. So if you're each doing $2,500, that's fine, or one person's doing $5,000, but together you can't go beyond $5,000. So we'll just do. And then we have all the required language to let you know that what you're signing off on, and I understand that this is an annual election. I can't change my election unless I have a life event, all those types of acknowledgements. And then down here on employee signature, I'm just going to put my name. Spell it right. And then add my digital signature. And then further down, I'm just going to. Now that the video also spoke about the comments. You can certainly put comments in here, but it's not a conversation. So it's not as if, just be careful that I don't think a person on the receiving end of this form will necessarily think to read your comments if you have a question. Best to just call Mariah Martin, our benefits specialist, if you have a question regarding benefits. But I think initially we'll give Mariah a heads up that she really needs to watch those comments just in case somebody's thinking they're having a conversation. And then you hit submit form. That is all you need to do. And you have now completed your flexible spending form online. Okay? So you don't need paper. In the packet that you'll receive, you'll have paper. But if you want to try out the system, try it out this way. And the form is automatically being forwarded to Mariah, and Mariah will view it, and she will make sure that maybe you didn't put the minimum, or maybe you put the max too much. So she will look at it, she will review it and approve it, and then it will then be uploaded automatically into your record as an employee. So that's pretty much it. The form allows you to upload documents as well. So if you're doing the waiver form through Frontline Central, you can upload a copy of your insurance card as proof that you have other coverage. So you can just upload it and you're finished with one. So, I mean, I could probably spend hours on Frontline Central because, it's so fun. But any questions about that? Feeling comfortable with the system?
Quick question for you is in regards to, will we know that because when we uploaded that Mariah, she'll approve it and she upload, how will we know it's all taken care of,
Check. I think you make it, I can set it up where you get an email notification upon approval.
I think that would help.
So
you're not wondering again.
So
I love it.
I'll double check and test it out if that's the case, but I believe we can set up email notifications. And then say if it was denied, you would get an email notification saying your form was denied, and then you can open it up and find out
what's missing or
what did I do, and then resubmit.
That'd be great.
It's a two-way communication through the email system, but also if you wanted to check your forms and then check, sent forms or completed forms, it would appear there as well. Marty?
Will we be able to upload our evidence for dependents?
Yes. Absolutely. The question is, can I upload my evidence of dependent eligibility on the open enrollment form? Absolutely, you can. Because we want folks to be comfortable, this is the first year we're using Frontline Central, and especially with open enrollment, we wanted folks to be have options. You can do the paper. I would love for you to try Frontline Central. You can upload your materials. But if you weren't yet comfortable with uploading, but you just did the form, you can let us know. I'm going to hand that to Mariah separately in her office mail, or yes, I'm uploading it and here it is. So we just, again, trying to ease people into using Frontline Central, but it's built to upload forms. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, let me switch back out. Any other questions? So as an employee, the extent that they'll see is dashboard and my forms and their profile. Now, the video also speaks to all those other tabs that a person can see. Because we limit it, because some of the data is not there yet, we didn't want to alarm employees because then I think they will say, you're missing my data. We didn't want to, not that I didn't want them to tell us that we're missing the data, but I didn't want them to get upset. So the data that they can see is the data that's in there, and as we build it, we'll start to open it even further for the employee, just as an FYI. So if they see the video and you're watching the video, saying, that lady told us that we would have that tab, not just yet in some cases, okay? Any other questions?
Some of the folders you were showing as far as the employment credentials, I've been able to find that information on CSIU, the personnel section. Will things continue to be, I'm assuming that's been used for a whole bunch of other things. So will it continue once things are uploaded into the system that we can actually be able to find those in both locations?
Right. Tina's asking the question of some of the data is sitting in CSIU. So will the data also be in Frontline Central? The systems right now don't talk to each other. So we do have to make those decisions. Because if it's working well in CSIU, do we really put it in Frontline Central? Because otherwise it's really manually uploading and putting that information in there. So we have some conversations still with IT and deciding, even from an efficiency standpoint, where that data will be held. So bear with us as we go through those conversations so that you're not sure, okay, gosh, which system do I now look in? Right now we're using it for forms and then some of the other data. Any other questions?
So we're going to take a quick 10-minute break and come back and do the pinch model. So 10 minutes, fill up your coffee. Thank you, Tony. And we'll be back on in 10 minutes. You're going to call anyone else out? Oh, I can give you this.
Gary, if you'll find your seats, I'm going to turn the microphone back over to Rob and Tony.
So the next thing that we want to share with you. It's called the pinch model, and it's really a strategy or a thought process in helping you deal with, unfortunately, all the many different opportunities with conflict that come into your day and dealing with people in different situations. I believe we'll just start. We have a brief video. We'd like to show you just to give you some background on this the pinch model.
We at Manager Tools love doing actionable podcasts, right? That's the thing you can count on us for. Manager Tools, Career Tools, no matter what, you're going to get specific recommended actions every time you listen to 20 or 30 or 40 minutes, or even if it's a multi-part show. Sometimes, though, that means things get left on the floor. Not that we have a cutting room, but they get left on the floor because they're really not specifically actionable. We refer to them. They're underlying principles. Good examples are Rule 150, for instance. But there are situations that we have a theory we want to share that's not actionable, and this is one of them. And it's called the pinch crunch model. And it's a very simple sociological or psychological interpersonal communication model that simply says this. If you have a relationship with another person, whether it's professional or personal, if the boss or subordinate or peer, it doesn't matter, any relationship at all, there is an understanding about what the parameters and rules are in that relationship. If it's your boss, obviously it means your boss can tell you to work late. If it's your spouse, it means you don't give him or her feedback. There are all kinds of parameters and rules that we understand. We have different parameters and rules with our children than we do with our parents, than we do with our peers, as opposed to our subordinates, as opposed to our bosses. Each one of those relationships, and depending upon the type of friendships you have, each one of those has a different set of parameters and rules associated with it. The pinch crunch model says that periodically, as you're interacting with someone, communicating with someone over a period of time, there are times when the relationship experiences a pinch. A little moment where one or both people feel a little bit of disconnect, where someone perhaps behaves slightly out of the relationship. You tell someone something in confidence, and they repeat it to somebody else, and you find out, or you expect your directs to be on time and they're late, or you expect your boss to give you plenty of advance warning to be able to deal with childcare, and they don't, and that pinches the relationship. You probably, if it's a solid relationship, a pinch every once in a while is not a problem. The pinch crunch model, though, says this. If you pinch and you don't discuss it, you don't become clear about what happened and why it happened, should we change our parameters, should we change our rules, or should we just recognize that somebody who makes mistakes right now, the only thing we do is apologize one to the other. If you have a pinch, and then you have another pinch, and then perhaps another pinch, and there is no planned renegotiation, there's no discussion of what the pinch was, you end up in what we call a crunch. And in the model, if you draw a picture of the model, it actually shows a little teeny pinch, but several of them in a row, followed by a gigantic crunch. And unfortunately, what happens is the crunch is what gets the press, is what we focus on when there is an ongoing relationship of any type. The crunch is what seems to be the moment of parting, or when we simply say, we're going to dissociate from one another. We fire our director, we decide we want to leave our company because our boss is a jerk, or our peers are not supporting us, whatever the case might be. Or we stop talking to our child for a week because we're so upset with his or her behavior, whatever it might be. We've had some pinches, and then because we don't address things as they come along, those pinches build up, and then finally we have a crunch. And the pinch crunch model says, rather than focusing on how to solve that crunch, the way to get to a successful relationship is to deal with the pinches when they happen. This is an underlying theory that Mike and I, and the entire Manager Tools team, knows to be true. And we know that if we have a pinch, it's better to talk about it more. Maybe make light of it, make it a small thing, make it brief, to get over it, to say, yes, we did have a pinch, and we know what happened, we know why it happened, and we can adjust our behavior going forward because of it. Or we forgive one another, whatever the case might be, rather than saying, it's not that big a deal, let's wait, and then say it's not that big a deal again 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, and 6 weeks later, until you suddenly get the crunch. Crunches are what we're going to avoid. But if your solution to crunches is to solve the crunch when it happens, you're solving the symptom and not the cause. The cause are those pinches along the way. And that's why, with the Manager Tools feedback model, we recommend it be brief and quick and over. We recommend brevity in the feedback model. We don't want managers firing people. And when managers call us and say, I gotta fire somebody, what do? We almost always say, well, we can help you solve this problem, but really that's not the underlying problem. The underlying problem is you had a bunch of pensions, you didn't do anything about it, you didn't give any feedback, you essentially sent them back to it was okay to do that because you didn't renegotiate what the parameters and rules were between you and your subordinate, and now unfortunately the performance has gotten so bad you feel that it's necessary to fire them. We generally would disagree with that, but nevertheless, the fact is you're now at a crunch moment and you want to know, how do I solve this crunch? And really the solution to crunches happens long before, and the right solution to a pinch. And that is a pinch crunch model.
So there is an article in your packet, provides you more detail. It contains this graphic, just more about the thought process behind this model. And it's really to not let things fester. That if we can address things before they become a bigger issue, and putting it in context of some of the things that we talked about, and if the concerns that you have with your employee's performance, it's better to have those conversations early on before it becomes a much bigger problem, where there are some additional consequences that may happen. So there is an article that provides more detail for you. It talks about the thought process in having those conversations and the questions that ask and how to approach that. This is also behind the clothespin. I know some of you thought we were those who hang the clothes out, or better yet, maybe to close your potato chips at home. But you know, this is to remind you that the pinch crunch model, that as you're in your day-to-day activities, we understand that you can get caught up in things, but if you can address those little things that are occurring and not let them fester, hopefully we can all avoid those when they become a bigger issue.
Like just for safety purposes, that is not used to pinch the person. It's to just be a visual reminder that you're experiencing the pinch, and perhaps you may want to address it. Just
Thank you very much. Two quick updates from business services. One is we have a new accountant starting. We introduced Mary a few minutes ago, and with some shuffling in the office, we will be having a new accountant starting on Monday. Her name is Lori Kastner. She is currently the accounting manager at Wilson School District. She'll be starting on Monday. We're very excited to have her join our team. She has 10 years of experience, so it's great that she's joining us. We'll have more information coming out to you shortly about her roles and responsibilities. I'd like to bring Eric Clemmer up right now. He's going to give you a quick update on some federal guidelines regarding purchasing. Won't take a lot of time because I know that's like a real snooze fest for everyone, but it's really important information.
Thank you, George.
Yeah.
The main reason we wanted to put the updates for UG on was there's some changes in thresholds I want to make you aware of, and the other reason was to annoy Carl for his final supervisor.
You're doing that.
For Pennsylvania school code for purchasing using state funding, every year there's a mandate in that thresholds change. For 2019, for 3 quotes, it's purchases above $11,100, and bid thresholds have increased to $20,600. There are exemptions to each of these. My suggestion is anybody that's purchases approaching those amounts, reach out to Tilly and myself, and we can go over any of the specifics that are needed. On to the fun part of UG, the federal guidelines. The big change here is micro purchases. Previously, they had a threshold of anything above $3,500 with federal funds. You needed 3 quotes. They have now changed that to $10,000. So the previous slide said $11,100 for state funds for 3 quotes. For federal funds, it's $10,000. Other than that, all the guidelines have stayed the same. We just wanted to give a quick refresher on that. Now, there are exemptions to this, and in your packet, you'll see a sole source form. I know Matt is very familiar with these forms. What we ask is that for purchases that we think are sole source, fill out one of these forms, contact Tilly and myself. We'll work with the business office to make sure it meets the guidelines. But for each purchase order over those thresholds, we're asking for one of these forms. We attach it to the purchase order. So that way, when the auditors come, they see it in advance and it avoids a whole lot of questions about how we decided something. Anybody have any questions on the good news is May 13th, we are going to have a 24-hour hotline. The only problem is announcing is Carl won't give me his cell phone number.
That's a real joke.
That's the nicest thing you said in the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
I was thinking other things.
I'll give the microphone to Michelle before Carl kills me.
Yes. Thank you, Eric. Just two brief updates from the Office of Early Childhood and Student Services. I just wanted to talk about our Head Start program and their recent award for duration funding. Overall, we've applied for duration funding, which is really to meet the performance standards in the Head Start guidelines. That says that students should be in programming for 1,020 hours, so full day, full year programming. It is a performance standard that was passed, but was not necessarily funded through the federal government, so was put on hold. We recently were awarded over $600,000 to increase our programming for up to 17 of our classrooms, which will impact 289 students across the locations that are listed on the slide. This will have an impact on our Head Start operations. It will increase our current staff and program hours, so their number of days will increase as well as the length of day that they'll work. And it will also increase positions specific to 17 paraeducators, 2 instructional coaches, an education supervisor, a health services supervisor, and an additional health nutrition specialist. So with the duration funding, we were able to build in some additional supports for the program as a whole. But I just wanted to commend our Head Start team again on another great accomplishment. They really have been very vigilant this year and just looking at the different funding opportunities to improve programming, and again have been awarded a significant amount of money to increase services to kids and really quality to students. So thank you, Head Start team, and I am going to pass the microphone over to our Assistant Director, Mrs. Christy Weitzel, to talk about Month of the Child. Thank you, Mrs. Director.
So, whether you know or don't know, April is the month of the young child, and so we just wanted to bring some attention to that with our early childhood programs. Thank all the work that they do, Head Start, early intervention, pre-K counts, and childcare to help support those students' needs. Along with that, we had an event on Thursday of last week, April 18th. It was held at the Muhlenberg Elementary School. They hosted us, thanks to Dr. Majola and his team. And pre-K counts there. We had a roundtable meeting. We had some representatives. Senator Schwenk was there, as well as Representative Razi, and then some business leaders were in attendance. As you can see, they're listed here. It was a great event. It was to support the Pre-K for PA campaign. I'm trying to continually increase funding for pre-K programs throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And so that was a great success. They had a roundtable discussion, as well as we got some media coverage, and then also we went to the classroom where they read 2 stories to the children. That was very interactive. So we had a lot of different people throughout the community there. I just wanted to highlight what a great event that was. That's it for this.
Next, so you can click the slide. Next is
and turn over to Mr. Rachers.
Scott, you are up.
Good morning. I just have a couple of items this week, and I told my wife when I left this morning I should have worn a dark hoodie that shows the cybersecurity. Yeah. But she did it because she knew I was doing it. Okay, so the first item was just a kind of a recap. In March, we did our first cybersecurity awareness month, and there was a number of things that we put out there. We kept it kind of low key because most of it was just getting information in front of everyone. We increased our phishing campaigns. We did 1 a week. We did the scam and tips of the week, which we're going to continue to do because the nice thing about them is they're very current. So if you're reading those, which I hope you are, because they're real quick reads, but a lot of them are around taxes and the frauds that are going on around the tax season. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see a number of them going around with the bombings and at the fire at Notre Dame and the bombings in the church, where you're going to have these fake fundraising campaigns. So those are going to continue. The other thing is just keeping an eye on local breaches. I believe we had one involving Facebook that I put out there. Again, social media seems to be a common attack because of all the information that's out there as far as harvesting data. Another thing that we started doing last month in our department is when you fishhook emails, we have a tool that our service center is now using to scrutinize whether or not they're really malicious, if they're just spam, or maybe it was just you thought it looked funny and you sent it in, which is great. We encourage that. That's helping us identify them as they come in. We can start to take remediation action on the back end that mitigates further propagation, anything else coming in that matches that profile. And also, if somebody does click, we can mitigate any issues that may have come from it. So that's been awesome. I wanted to just show you a graph real quick on the progress that we've made. This is going back a year. This is looking at our phishing campaigns. And really what you can see pictorially is over the past year, we went from what they call a 12% fish prone down to 4%, which is significant. That proneness means the number of phishing emails we sent out and how many people we either clicked on them, enter data, that kind of thing. That's where that ratio comes in, and that's where those percentages come from. So you can see we're downward trending, which is awesome. The other thing that's been notable is we went from a 25% fish hook up to 36%, which is great. That means more people are starting to report things, which again, whether it turns out to be nothing or not, we still encourage it because you just never know. So that's a kudos to everybody for
Pretty good. I think this is telling the data entered when we first started versus now people are not going to.
That's getting better. But the big one is how many people are clicking. The reds are the clicks. Yeah. So the more we see green and the less red and orange we see, that's better. And you can see this graphically that we've made significant progress. So that's why we continue to put the information out there. For those of you who've been involved in training, you know what happens when you go, and that's an awesome training. This is great. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But then when you don't have it in front of you after a couple of weeks, you kind of go back to what you always did. Mm-hmm. So this is one of these topics that we just want to keep out in front of everyone because it just continues to change.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I just want to know what happens to the people that I click on a fish alert and they actually weren't a problem. Are they banned from my email forever? Or will I get that email back because it goes away when I fish alert?
Yeah, that's a good question. When you fish hook up an email, what it does is it puts it into your deleted.
Oh, okay.
And then on the back end, at our service center, it opens up a ticket on the back end for the service center to look at. When they take action, you're not going to get an email directly to you from that tech.
Right.
It's going to come in the form of a ticket.
Oh,
so when the ticket gets closed, that'll have the details as to what happened with it.
Okay.
Whether or not, yes, there was something malicious, we escalated it to be further reviewed. But when that ticket gets closed, you'll get that. That's where that information's out. So thank you for asking that question. And if you have any other feedback, well, maybe it's not clear enough or you don't understand, feel free to contact me because we want to incorporate that in. We want this to be a two-way process. The other thing that we just started this month was our first security awareness training. There would have been an email that came out to everyone in this group. It was leadership, supervisors, and IT. This is what the email looked like. Unfortunately, I didn't think enough ahead to do this and include that with my initial email. So you knew what to look for. So some people fish with it. Some of them intentionally. But the first training, and the reason we picked 45 minutes, and I know what I would have said when I got it, the ugly. But it's very encompassing, and again, this group in particular is more vulnerable than the average user, only because if somebody is looking to gain information, they're going to look to see who the supervisors, who the leaders are, and that's who they're going to go after. So it's very good training. It is 45 minutes, but this is a once and done. The other trainings that we'll be pushing out quarterly are like 10 minutes. And it'll be a very specific topic. This is like 4 or 5 different topics. So it's a big overview. Yes, ma'am.
If there's something that's been reported and then determined that it's not, didn't have malice behind it, can you go back and you give feedback that you can go back into those deleted items and then access it again?
The question was, if you fish hook an email and it turns out to be benign, there's nothing malicious about it, can you get that email back and is that communicated? Is that your question? The answer is, I will say it's supposed to be. I have not gotten one of those emails, but we did speak with the service center about a month and a half ago about letting the user know they can go get it back. It is in your deleted items, so you can go in there and recover it. But I'll double check that. That came up on Monday, so I'll get an answer for that definitively, but it should be in the ticket.
Yeah, I actually did one that.
It did tell you that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I actually fished it back. There was 2 of us that tried to get in there and do the training and we did not open up. So after the other person tried it and I went in and tried it and did not let us start the training, I thought, well, maybe it needs to be fished off. So I fished it.
Okay.
So if you can resend it.
No problem. Can you see me afterwards?
Yeah,
and we'll get that straightened out. Okay. And the training is set up to where you can start and stop it, so you don't have to be glued to the desk for the whole 45 minutes. If you do 5 minutes ago and come back, you can do that. Right now, there was 103 users enrolled. We have, that number says 17. It was actually 20 completers now. There's still 10 in progress. There will be a reminder that goes out every 14 days if you haven't completed, so you will get another reminder. I'll probably follow up with something from me that has a copy of the email so you know what to look for. And I would say going forward, that's what it's going to look like. We're not going to change the form or anything. And then our next campaign is scheduled for July. And again, that'll be like 10 minutes. That'll be a short meeting going forward. The third item was, I'm sorry.
Do you need the certificates that we printed out from the training, or do we just keep them for our records?
The question was, when you complete the training, there's a certificate presented to you. You can download and print. We do not need them. We have access to them in the system. They're for your purposes.
Okay.
The third item was our first edition of our cybersecurity newsletter, What the Hack. And if you've ever been hacked, hack would be a more colorful, fragrant phrase, I'm sure. But the whole point of the cybersecurity newsletter is to take a topic that's common, provide more information, and give you the opportunity to take a look at it in more detail if you choose. This one, we focused on what's out there as far as open source intelligence. So what can somebody find out about me on the internet? And the topic was go profile yourself on the internet. That's really what the article was about. How do you profile yourself? There is a number of links that are in there that you can do this. It's very simple. It's non-technical. I actually went out and just did one on my own just to see what came back. Because there's one called Intellius. The other one was CheckMe. So there's 2 different services that I'm aware of that do this. It costs $34, and it gives you 1 month of unlimited searches. So as I go through with this, you'll kind of see where that gets to be very powerful. So on mine, it pulled my name, date of birth, my age, any aliases I've had. So if I were to be, if it would have been my wife, we would see her maiden name. It has my full job and education history. It had all my previous phone numbers all the way back to where I lived with my parents back in 1983. All my former addresses, all my relatives, and it was very accurate. The names of my neighbors from all the addresses I lived at, all my email addresses, their email addresses, and criminal records. So where this gets, now that's just me. So if I was going to target someone and either go after an extortion, if I was going to harass, or if I was going to try to spearfish you to get money, I could take all this information and I could use that $34 for unlimited searches, and I could start searching all the other people that it turned up. So I could get enough information where I can have a conversation and convince you that I know you, or I'm really good friends with somebody that you do know. And again, it's $34, it's 1 month, but you can pull a lot of data in a month. And it takes about, I don't know if you've ever tried one of those where you're trying to look up a friend. It takes about 10 minutes, and it makes it look like it's doing all kinds of work in the background. You get the progress bar going and all this. It's a 151-page report is what I got out of it.
Wow.
So when you hear about people being targeted either via phishing emails, or they're being extorted, or they're being harassed, this is all done, and this is all information that's available on the internet that's free. The service just aggregates all of it and pulls it together in a nice, clean report. I was thinking about putting it up, but I didn't want my stuff put there. But it's real scary when you look at it, because it had all my kids, it had their address where we lived when they were kids, all the way up to the ones that are married where they're at now. So it's all out there. Even my 2 speeding tickets were up there. So. But he pulled the wrong guy. The last item I have is just an FYI. We've been working with Human Resources in revising our confidentiality agreement. I know the ECSS uses it heavily. Some of you may have signed it years ago, but we wanted to go back and revisit it and make sure it was still relevant and met the legalities of today. Really, the purpose of it is just to protect the privacy of our students and employees. That's really the gist of it. It's a one-pager. It reminds you that you're able to share the information internally, but on an as-need to know. And we're going to coordinate using Frontline to disseminate the confidentiality agreement so that we can have everyone sign it electronically. And we'll start that in September. We thought the start of the school year would be a good time because we'll be able to communicate with everybody all at once. And then going forward, those who go through the hiring process or the onboarding process will get hit by HR when they do their opening day. And then those forms are, again, once they're signed electronically, they go right into your digital folder in HR, which is where we're moving with all of our forms eventually. We are working strategically right now with transportation and ECSS because we have some technology access issues that we're going to have to navigate. So we are continuing to strategize on how to approach that. Any questions? Thank you very much. I'll turn this over to Dan.
The clicker? Do we have a clicker?
You click for me.
Thank you.
All right, just a couple quick informational items because maybe it impacts you or possibly impacts people that you work with on a regular basis. So our leadership series, our Short Connections Conference, and the Career Ready Work, just to give you a little follow-up on that. So our leadership series coming next year is actually on equity. We are bringing in Dr. Tyron Howard out of UCLA. He'll be with us for 3 days in the fall, really talking about equitable practices, what's happening in our schools, how to identify things, and then action planning towards best practices in terms of moving forward. So that's our leadership series. This is the save the date flyer. More information to come in the future. If you're interested in registering, though, Lori Gerber out of my office, you can reach out to her for more information will be coming in the very near future that we'll put out. And that will be on our website as well. Our Core Connections Conference, there is a link that will take you to the full site for the conference. We'll give you all the details in terms of the sessions and things like that. Do want to highlight June 12th and 13th. We have over 100 sessions that will be running those 2 days. We currently have 400 plus participants that will be coming, so a very large event that we like to put on for all of our educators in the county. But it is an Educators for Educators conference, so it's the best practices that are happening in our schools and those people coming together to actually present on what they're doing in the classroom and offer that expertise across the county to whoever would like to come. And it is a free event. And lastly, just a quick update on our Career Ready Bursts. We've hit some milestones recently where we have 100+ businesses that are currently on our platform, ready to offer experiences to our students, but also to our educators. So again, educators that you know, educators yourself, if you're looking for experiences to get to learn a little bit more about the businesses and the opportunities that are connected to your field and your areas, as well as to students, there's opportunities that are listed on our website. I'd ask you to kind of take a look at that, pass along the word, careerreadybursts.org, and just share that information with people that you come in contact on a regular basis. Those are the 3 information items I have.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. And moving on for a few updates. The employee goals that we have up here for employee engagement have been updated. They will be on the PowerPoint that will be on the Supervisors tab, so that you're aware that all of that information will, as we shared before, I'll go through those slides. But it really goes back to this quote that a person who feels appreciated will always do more than what is expected. And that's what employee engagement is all about, is making sure folks are appreciated, that they feel a purpose, a sense of purpose as we move forward as an organization. So the goals are here by our priority areas, and you'll be able to read those on your Friday night leisure time. And then we have a few updates regarding contract negotiations. I'll turn the microphone over to Mr. Blessing to give those.
Thank you, Becca. Updates on ASME. Their contract again ends June 30th, 2019, and we have a last best offer that we offered on March 26th. They are taking that offer to vote on May 7th, so we'll hear whether we have a 4-year agreement after they take that vote. SEIU, again, their contract ends at the end of June, and we just had a negotiation session last night, and we have a tentative agreement, and they are taking their offer to vote on May 2nd. So that, if they approve that, that will be a 3-year agreement. So both good news there that those look good, they're going forward. Transportation Drivers Committee. They're not in a union, but they do have a compensation and benefits plan that which ends June 30th. We've already had meetings on March 19th, April 16th, and the next one scheduled for next Tuesday, April 30th. And what we are considering is a 3-year plan for transportation. Again, we're talking over 350 employees. 3-year plan, the primary focus is that hourly rate structure and the way to attract and retain staff, because there's a lot of turnover in transportation, just like there is in powers and other parts of the organization. So it's very important to us that we have a good plan and something that's acceptable to the employees and to the IU. Act 93, just an update on Act 93. There was a 2-year plan with Act 93. The 2nd year begins July 1, 2019. What that calls for is 2% raises, maximum of 2% raises, or a higher of 2%, or minimum of $950 for everybody. Part-timers get 2% raise, or a minimum of 52 cents an hour. Individuals must be employed and work their first full day by December 31st, 2018 to be eligible for the wage increases. People at the range maximums will receive a $250 one-time payment that will not be added to their salary. And PAT has a separate salary structure. Benefits for next year, benefit contributions for next year for medical, dental, and vision. They're all going up 0.5% for all the different salary tiers. So 0 to 44,999 is going to 10% from 9.5. 45 to 59,999 from 11.5 going to 12%. 60,000 to 74,999, 13.5 to 14, and above 75, 15.5 to 16. And of course, part-time employees are offered that they can buy coverage at 100% of the cost. Supervisors meeting dates for next year. September 24th, 2019, right here in Commonwealth A and B. Wednesday, November 20th, 2019, Commonwealth A and B. Wednesday, February 26th, 2020, Commonwealth A and B. And Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020, Commonwealth A and B. And I will be thinking about all of these. And of course, summer hours, Rob already went over that pretty well. And the start of the year, State of the Union, August 20th, 2019, again at Muhlenberg, 7:30. And the PAT staff is getting a treat of administration going up there and presenting the start of the year, State of the Union at 1 p.m. at in Harrisburg. So.
Thank you, Mr. Blessing. And I think it's important for the start of the year State of the Union. And this is a mandatory date for folks unless there are some circumstances that are unforeseen or unavoidable. So based on that notion, there would have to be authorization through my office. So make sure folks know that they mark their calendar for Tuesday, August 20th. So we'll be at Muhlenberg for all of the staff except PA Key, working with Dr. Aylesworth and her team. Because of Harrisburg being centrally located for folks coming from Erie, coming from Philadelphia, we thought we would be in Central PA for that presentation. So we'll do that then at 1 o'clock up at Patina. And before we conclude here, when you think about where we're at as an organization and sharing how I've shared with the board, we have 80 amazing supervisors. When you look around this room, this is how the work gets done with our 1,200 employees. It's a bittersweet situation for me to recognize Mr. Blessing at this time for his 35 years of service. You don't find that too often, that somebody stays for 35 years in one organization. And Carl started in 1984 as an accountant, has moved his way through, most recently as CFO and COO and assistant to the executive director, and now bringing on George for the past 3 months has been serving as the assistant to the executive director. But regardless of title, when you think of Carl, because titles aren't important to him. In fact, when we were back and forth in and out of Reading School District, he said to Dr. George and myself, because I really don't care what you call me. So we sort of laughed like when he said, we don't care, because that shows his humility of how humble Carl is as a servant leader, that titles haven't meant anything. But I think all of us in this room would agree that Carl has been a great professional partner, a mentor, somebody that we've been able to go to, somebody that I would say has been that advisor that has given us guidance, direction. I know that I can speak personally that Carl has done that for me, but I know we all can say that collectively, Carl. So on behalf of all of the supervisors, we have a small token of our appreciation for you. So if I could give Carl a moment here to come up, and let's give him a round of applause for his years of service.
Thank you, Dr. Hackman. Well, I certainly knew this day was coming. After a lot of thought, everybody asks, well, what are you going to miss the most? And I'll talk about the things I'm not going to miss the most. And at the top of the list is wearing this thing every day. So I like to find it got an invented tie, but I like to find him from however long ago that was. The idea was behind these things. Second thing I'm not going to miss the most are snow days. Probably not surprising to a lot of you. Transportation for sure, right? And third on the list, I'm going to have to say, is Eric's presentation. But everybody asks, well, what are you going to miss the most? And it's a pretty easy answer. It's basically interacting with all of you. That's I'm going to definitely miss all of you and the organization. So all the great things we do. When you look at the plethora of services we provide, it's pretty amazing. So when you talk about special education, pre-K counts, early intervention, child care, Head Start, transportation, PAT, and under the M&M team here.
Yeah.
It just goes on and on. BOL, driver education, alt ed, on and on and on. And I'm not missing some, but when you look at all the services provided, it is amazing. And it's an honor and privilege to work with Dr. Hackett. She's an amazing leader. And more importantly, she's a fantastic person. So I'm going to miss that. And you're going to be in great hands with Mr. Longridge and Donna on the leadership of the business office. So there's nothing to worry about there. You're in great hands going forward. So thank you very much.
So thank you, Mr. Blessing. And just on a lighter note related to his leadership, when I was preparing, thinking, because we'll be doing official presentations of Mr. Blessing tomorrow night at the board, and then on May 9th and 10th, there are a couple different events. All of you are aware of many of those items, but I was preparing over the weekend, and my husband said, just on the side, he said, oh, what are you working on? I said, comments about Carl, and he said, you need to tell everybody he's your CIA protective Secret Service detail, because every picture that Carl's there, he's standing towering over me. So I'm like, Secret Service detail. And Carl has been, we joke, but I said, he's been a protector to all of us. And he's protected this organization when you think about not only the financial health, but the reputation. He's been an advocate, a champion for the great work that we've done and that we continue to do. It's because of his leadership, his protection of all of us and of BCIU. So again, one more round of applause for Carl. So we have about 15, 20 minutes here. So at 11:30, we will have our new Supervisors Academy that will be running 11:30 to 1:30. So those of you who are on the list, will be staying for that. Lunch provided. We will have a light lunch for you. So that will be. And if there are any questions, you can see us afterwards. And on behalf of Mr. Bless and myself, I'm going to say thank you for your service. Enjoy the spring and happy summer. Thank you.